My name is Nataliya, and I'm a founder of Balanced Fashion. It's a consulting group, and also it's a newsletter for fashion tech events that are basically have a sustainability as intrinsically in them. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it after, but I just wanted to introduce John, who's a host who's hosting us tonight with Voyager.
Yeah, hi everyone. Welcome to this space. Thanks for being here. Just wanted to let you know what Voyager is. We're a space and community for founders in travel, tourism, and hospitality. So we connect our now membership bases of over 700 members around the world with corporate partners, investors, much like an incubator would, but through a free membership model. So Nataliya's been a big support of our community from the beginning, and we're really happy to have you guys here and to host you. If there's anything that the travel community can do for you, please feel free to reach out. My information's right up there, and I'll be up front all night. So yeah, it's great to have you both here. Yeah.
Well, also a side note, John is also a co-host of a podcast called 5 to 9, which is this is one of the my favorite podcasts of Mouth Media, which is also a media company that hosts podcasts. But so 5 to 9 is basically a podcast about hustlers and this hustling generation that really start real work from 5 to 9 or 12 or 3 a.m. But yeah, I just want to just say 2 words about it in your event.
Yeah, absolutely. We're doing an event on the 29th, a live podcast recording with a Google product manager who started a sock company for fun and now is selling custom socks. It's actually really, it's Mr. Misaki, so it's really fun, it's really cute.
And I included it into my newsletter for the next 2 weeks, so definitely check it out. I'll be there.
That's 5TO9, so definitely check it out. Yeah. Great to meet you all.
Thank
you.
Thanks,
Natalia. Nice to enjoy.
All right. Thank you guys for coming here. Really appreciate it. Honestly, you're huge supporters. I see a lot of familiar, friendly faces. So again, a little bit. Oh no. Probably that's been over an hour. Sorry. Yeah. So a little bit, just a tiny bit about me if nobody knows, or maybe you guys know, just a reminder. So I'm a fashion tech professional, I work at Spring full time, and on the side I work as a consultant for fashion brands, and as well as fashion tech companies. And my goal is to change this industry at some point, one way or another, and I know it's a very ambitious goal, and I cannot do it without you and everyone else that is a part of the industry, and really change the way consumer thinks about fashion and consumption. And of course, it includes thinking of how we can make them more conscious about buying fashion, which is maybe going through a pre-order model, which leads me into this introduction to this amazing company, 19th Amendment, that have been around for about 5 years, right? It's been 3 years. Okay, I know that you did something. I know you did. I did a campaign in 2012, so I remember that. But then officially,
you are very going way back.
But still, I mean, the idea has been there for a while, and they're gonna talk about this all. But just wanted to say how much I admire you guys, and you know that I've been a fan from very beginning of time. I came out to them at every single event. It was like, hi, I'm here, whatever. But honestly, super happy to have you. And let's go into the video introduction first, and then. So yeah, as a format, it's going to be actual lecture by 19th Amendment, and then Q&A, as a flat panel Q&A, and then Q&A from the group. But if you guys have any questions while I'm Q&A, please just jump in as well. Okay, so the video.
The 19th Amendment gives fashion a voice. We give designers and shoppers the ability to speak and be heard by curating independent fashion from around the globe. We deliver the attention and quality needed to satisfy independent designers and their fans. Our collections are offered at pre-sale prices and manufactured in the United States. Discover design stories. Follow their work and be the first to shop designer pre-sales for insider pricing before production begins. Together, we set trends before they hit the runway. This is how fashion was meant to be. Outspoken. 19th Amendment. For fashion, for designers, for you.
Yes, in my point of view, this is the future of what fashion is going to look like.
Man, no,
So,
big
just saying. Just saying. Ambition. Okay. So, right here.
Can everyone see this? Am I okay here?
I'll be clicking from here. Is that okay?
Yeah, actually, well, I'll sit in your seat
Yeah.
then. Alright, Amanda.
Can anyone tell me what the 19th Amendment was? Yes, this is a pop quiz. Beth?
You. Had a hand up.
Okay, women's suffrage.
Yes!
Yay.
So while we're celebrating the 21st,
Cheers.
we're going to be talking about the 19th. So, like he mentioned, the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was universal suffrage. So we often talk about fashion and what we do about being a way to give a voice back to designers and the consumers that kind of fall in love with fashion.
Yeah. So basically, like, up until this point, it's been magazine editors, Anna Wintour, other people saying, like, this is what you should buy, here's how you should dress. And so much of that is changing, especially with, like, bloggers entering into the ecosystem and designers putting out new things. So we really believe in giving power back to the consumer to determine which brands are going to make it best. So giving them a voice in the future of fashion.
Yeah, so essentially the customer is voting with their wallets for the next big name in fashion.
So that's why we're called what we're called.
So next.
And just wanted to, I'm sorry, I didn't really introduce the speakers. So this is
Oh, yeah, sorry.
and this is Gemma. Sorry,
We're just two
this is
randoms.
19th Amendment.
We're the co-founders. Do you want to do like a little background first? Would that be
Yeah.
helpful?
Yeah, there's a
Okay.
slide there, but we'll talk about that first. So my name is Amanda Curtis. I'm co-founder and CEO of 19th Amendment. My background, I grew up in the fashion industry. So from day one was like in the factory and in the retail space and just fell in love with it. It's absolutely in my DNA. I did my undergrad in Boston and studied marketing, and then directly after went to Parsons to become a fashion designer. Worked for brands like DBF, Richie Rich, Dress Celebrities, and had kind of a Cinderella moment as a designer at the age of 25 where I was funded for my own fashion line. And basically what I saw in the industry was that the business model was broken. And even with funding and all the press and celebrity endorsement in the world, it wasn't going to be a successful business. So met Gemma, who has the exact opposite background that's complementary, and we came up with 19th Amendment. I'll let Gemma talk
Yeah.
about herself.
So my background is more on like the business process side. So I went to school in upstate New York. What did I do? I got a Kauffman Foundation grant to start a business in upstate New York. Did that for a year. Got recruited down to DC to do government strategy consulting. Did that for 2 years. Was like, nah, DC isn't really for me. Left, went back up to Boston, joined the venture capital community up there, and met Amanda. And then we kind of started thinking about applying kind of tech ideology to fashion, and that's kind of where this was born, along with kind of that designer struggle theme. So yeah. So our whole thing is like, instead of the regular fashion seasons, we believe in stories over seasons. So we're all about telling the story behind the design, the story behind the designer, and really the reason why kind of the products you see are the way that they are. So from like inspiration to design to manufacturing and beyond. And your story too. So maybe the next slide.
Oh, that's us.
Oh yeah, so we skipped it.
So, we call this, basically our approach to business and applying like this lean methodology from the tech world to the fashion industry, which really hasn't changed in over 125 years. We call it stiletto strapping.
Does everyone know what bootstrapping is? Okay, we were having this argument
yeah.
on Voyager.
We were
I think
sure.
everyone knows what it is, but
So
so we do stiletto strapping because, you know, I was gonna put heels on, but I didn't but usually I do. So this is the struggle.
It's the fashion
Is
struggle.
Lotus wrapping.
So basically doing the most amount with the least amount of capital or time, and we really saw a need to do this in the fashion industry, which is traditionally incredibly capital intensive and takes a lot of time to grow a brand.
Cool. So we call our approach smart fashion, essentially applying like the idea of a tech MVP to fashion. So what's the minimum viable product we can have in the fashion space that requires like the least amount of effort, cost, etc., which we talked about. But the benefits of this model is that we can deploy capital in fashion in the most efficient way. So instead of having these huge cash flow issues, these refactoring companies, etc., we can kind of have the cash up front to go into production with. The second is it's just-in-time delivery, so it's product that's only made if it sells. So there's kind of zero inventory waste. There's less shipping involved, direct-to-consumer.
More sustainable overall, environmentally friendly. Like it's just a smarter approach at every level, and then like we give data back to the brand so that they can use
Right.
the intel from their past collections or products to inform their design decisions. So it's smart design as well.
And most importantly, it allows us to tell these authentic fashion stories that we talked about that kind of allow the talent of unique designers to bubble to the top if they're like truly talented and people truly believe in what they're doing versus like being someone who has a very wealthy uncle who's just able to fund multiple collections and they're not going bankrupt. So that's kind of like, that's like our, what drives us forward. So next.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm sure you guys are all familiar with like the see now, buy now, making runway shows shoppable, beating up fast fashion retailers who are copying from the runway. What we really see is like the true innovation is the see now, buy now, and the make now, not holding inventory, so that you're not missing the mark on either side. Either you don't have enough inventory and you sell out, or you've purchased too much inventory and now you're sitting on a cash flow issue. So our platform truly enables this type of retailing.
We'll run through the process really quickly just so as we go through the discussion, you know. So the first thing that happens is the designers all develop their products independently. So we don't get involved with that as much. So they come to us typically with a production-ready pattern, a production-ready tech pack. They've got all their sourcing information, etc. They go on to our designer admin, which is like the back end. It's kind of like a PLM. Does everyone know what a PLM is? Production Lifecycle Management System. It's what larger companies are using to communicate product specs with like Chinese manufacturers or Bangladesh manufacturers. And we've kind of simplified it. For non-fashion people, like to say, please tell me this metaphor no longer works, but what like TurboTax did for tax accounting software, we kind of did for enterprise PLM software. So it's like making it a little bit more like user-friendly, a little lighter, less like clunky. So all of our designers are going in and uploading these specs. So if you go to the next slide, once they've got their entire tech pack up, so they've got the sample, they can send it to our network of vetted US no minimum manufacturers and get quotes on pricing. So they can essentially, with like a few clicks of a button, get like 5 to 10 quotes back on their product for the cost of labor. They can then use that to price the piece. So once they've priced it, all the information's there, all the marketing information is there. It goes up for pre-sale in the middle here. It goes up for a 19-day pre-sale, and then anything that sells in that 19 days, we automatically create a cut ticket, we automatically create a bill of materials. They pick the manufacturer they ultimately want to work with, and then the purchase order begins, and in about 4 to 6 weeks, it's delivered to the customer. So if you go to the next. Cool, so delivered to customer, a little ahead of myself. And then, so what we're doing on the back end is as these things are selling, we're collecting all the data on behalf of the brands around who's buying it, who's looking at it, who's converting, who's not converting, and then who the actual customer that the designer is selling to actually is. Because if you have any designer friends, they're usually like, oh, I'm designing for the 25-year-old in Manhattan who's making $200,000. I'm like, oh, who's she? I haven't met her. So the goal here is to kind of like, I want her job, is to kind of help them understand like who really is the person that's interested in this, like from, you know, the everything down to demographics, to age, to location. So we're not only collecting this data on our site, but feeding in really rich ad data. So they get kind of a complete package around who their real customer is.
Yeah, and potentially this is information that they can take to their wholesale buyer, or that we can take to a larger retailer and say, this is actually the designer that you want to put in store because it also matches the demographic of your audience. So it's just a smarter approach there.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so overall, this is why we're here. Our platform and our technology are really what enables this new wave of on-demand retail. And I'm sure we'll get into that in the discussion, so we'll just far into it. Yeah, so so overall, we have worked with over 500 brands from 29 countries, and we've seen some really great success with this new type of retailing. The customer is brought along that manufacturing journey, so there's total transparency, and they understand what goes into making a product, who is making it, where it's been made. And because of that, it's really a fashion as experience opposed to just fashion as product, which you see in the fast fashion industry. So we find that a millennial customer in particular is willing to pay more for that, and they're less likely to return. So overall, from the site, our e-commerce return rate is only 7%, which is incredibly, incredibly low. And we're meeting all these demands. So you can actually see how we're competing with the traditional fashion industry. So instead of 6 to 10 months of product development, we're taking that down to 4 to 6 weeks, which is one of the fastest turnaround times in the industry. So we're at the point of competing with Zara, which is a little bit better than them. At 10% of the cost overall, and that amazing return rate.
Oh, more. Yeah, so our primary customer is millennial right now, although we do have a slightly older customer too. But the nice thing about operating this pre-sale model is that we kind of tap into this young consumer that wants new cool things, but also has been kind of trained to expect a good deal, right? So guild groups, the 2009, 2008 kind of flash sale all the inventory sites have basically programmed you all to expect that there's always going to be inventory that will be marked down, right? So I'm going to get a good deal. And so the ability to do pre-sales has allowed us to say, we can give you a discount, but you've got to order it beforehand now. So we're removing the inventory issue, which a lot of that product doesn't exist anymore to the same degree. But you're still getting a great deal because you're buying it in advance.
And our approach to this new type of retailing has led to some pretty amazing partnerships. We were the first startup to partner with Macy's Inc., and we've done things in store with them, drove about 1,500 millennial consumers into stores, and have since worked with Microsoft and Lord & Taylor, Dell, and most recently Disney. So we are applying our model to some of these bigger companies who want to also offer amazing product, and tell these designer stories and connect with this millennial audience, but can't take the risk of holding inventory. So we're solving a lot of problems for them as well. And we have advisors, including Nina Garcia. So we have some great people in the industry who really support the vision.
Yeah. Cool.
And we've done some things.
A lot of accelerators.
Yes.
Cool. So I think that's
that's a brief overview.
Thank you.
Cool. So I know you all have tons of questions.
Yeah, let's start
Oh,
with
you have
kind of a real list. Okay, well, thank you so much. It's been fascinating. Every time I see you present, it's always I learn something new about your company, about your vision.
Cool.
Really cool. Thank you. Right. So I'm just was wondering because I was screening your looking at your website and trying to see if I know any designers or not. I never know anyone. Just wanted to know how do you screen designers or how do you select? What's the selection process?
Yeah. So basically, the industry pre-19th Amendment was all about how much money you had and who you knew, how many degrees away from an inventory you were. And we didn't think that was fair. We thought there's a better way to get talent out there, and determining factors of success should be how much you hustle and how talented you are. So really when designers apply to our site, they can, first of all, I should say, all brands can use our manufacturing platform. We believe very much so in giving them access to that. But the brands who apply to be in the marketplace, we look to see that there's potential, that they're out there kind of hustling on their own, that given the tools that we provide them, that they have the potential to become like the next Michael Kors or DVF, that there's something unique to their story and authentic about their story and their vision. They're not just copying the latest trends. There's got to be something organic there. And then we personally interview all of these designers and make sure that we really want to work with them because we're giving them so much and we are personally investing our time and efforts and resources. So we want to make sure we're all on the same page. And
Yeah, and just like little things, like if you're gonna apply, it's like kind of almost like submitting a job application. It's like, don't send me a link to like a portfolio that like I can't see, or like where the link to the Instagram is still linked to Wix's Instagram or something like that. Like little things like that where it's like, okay, come on guys, you're trying to sell things. So like little stuff like that. It's like just business acumen.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. And I wanted to make sure it's clear that 19th Amendment is a platform that sells designer brands and also produces for designer brands. If not necessarily all the brands are right on the front end.
Correct. And it's not required that you sell on our platform.
Right. So it is a manufacturing platform as well.
But what we find is most brands want to participate in the marketplace, from very small brands to all the way up to like brands like Disney. So it's everyone wants to be seen these days.
So and have like another way to reach the consumer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. I think this is very important because some people think of 19th Amendment as just a marketplace, right? And really, there's so much more behind it. Kind of a secret
secret
portion
sauce,
of it. Yeah. All right. And again, to that, maybe how do you see 19th Amendment grow in the next couple of years? What are your dreams for it?
Yeah, I mean, well, we're excited by like this idea of like offering unique product that can be rotating. So like a retailer of the future where there's no inventory, the product's always rotating, it can be tailored by location, etc. So we're testing kind of that pop-up idea this December. It will be in Boston.
here.
But we're excited to kind of see what the reaction is. We've done a couple of things like this in other retailers, but just what kind of like a branded experience looks like. So,
right.
And I think too, a lot of designers want a physical presence still. They still think it's with like small boutiques, but there aren't that many small boutiques left, and they don't often do like traditional buys, so it's like very hard for small brands to get into those, so they kind of struggle with this like, how can people see my product kind of a thing. So it's playing around with it.
Exciting. So it's going to be in Boston, right?
It's going to be in Boston.
And holiday season.
Yep, the first week of December, so if anyone's traveling. Do you have a question?
I have a question.
Yeah, quick question.
So the idea of it being stockless, are you counting the sample? Can people sell on the site with just a sketch? Or do they have to produce something that, like, they have to make something? There has to be one first.
Thank
right?
you for asking this question.
Can I ask everyone who asks questions introduce themselves, because I think it's very important for our community.
Do you want to introduce?
You gotta know who you are.
I'm Charles Beckwith. I'm the host of American Fashion Podcast.
Cool. Okay. As the designer, I'll answer your question.
Designer hat.
Designer hat right now. A sketch is like 90% different than the actual garment at the end of the day.
Is anyone a designer here? Okay,
cool. You
So-
get it. She got it. She's like, yeah, 100%. Like, there's so much that happens, and even if it's the best CAD, like, once you're actually, like, a product, so many things have changed. And for us, it's really important that the designers who come to us understand what the product is and that they can fill out their tech packs and it's ready to go into manufacturing. So otherwise, it just slows down the entire process. It also, for the consumer, if you're purchasing a sketch, it's disappointment at the end. It's not always the end garment.
Are you producing a lot of media to show the garments? Like, is that on the designer? Does the platform produce the sample and produce the media, or does that designer?
So designer comes to us with a sample garment.
Okay.
If they don't have a sample garment just yet, they can use our platform without being on the marketplace side to get a sample garment done with one of our manufacturers. And they're responsible for all of the images and everything that goes along with the collateral. We will help out when we can, and if we have to, we're happy to do that. But for the most part, the brands are in charge of that, and we want them to be in charge of that because that is really their storytelling.
Cool. Thanks, Jarvis. This was my third question. So. But I wanted to talk about, since the name of this event is the future of stockless retail, but maybe if you can talk a little bit further about on-demand production and maybe like other companies, why they are not really tackling that so much just yet, and how it is to be the first one.
It's really, really hard. So you mentioned that we've been around for 5 years. I mean, that's true. We've been basically working on that manufacturing back-end piece for 3+ years, at least. And it comes from like just knowing the industry inside and out, getting manufacturers on board, understanding their pain points, giving them a better way to operate, understanding the brands and what their needs were. And it's hard. It's hard to create product across multiple categories. We're not making t-shirts here. The good thing is that we did it. So I think we're offering like a different solution, and I think now like, what does that mean for the future of retail? We have something we call like design globally, made locally. So we have designers from 29 different countries. They're making product for people in the US, and they're able to do that through the platform and oversee the entire process. Our like bigger global vision is having centers of manufacturing around the world, and you could be in London and you buy a dress from someone who designed in LA, and that's made locally to you in the UK, and that just makes sense from a business standpoint, environmental standpoint, and just overall it's efficiency. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. I remember there's like a little story to it. I had so I participated in the fashion tech startup weekend, and I came up with this idea, have it made, and I remember I came up to, I think it was Amanda, or Gemma, I don't remember. I came up to one of you and said, I have this idea. You take all the manufacturers around New York, and you just produce things on demand for designers, for like all the brands. And they were like, yeah, great girl, go for it. And then I started to talk to manufacturers, and that was a nightmare, because they don't speak English, some of them, some of them spoke Russian, but didn't help, for me.
Anyway. Speak manufacturing.
Yeah, I had to speak really like another language for them. So really, thank you for doing it, because I know how hard it is. And like working in Tinker Tailor with these two girls, we had a manufacturing within ourselves, and it was one of the biggest nightmares we would ever.
We should talk after.
So yeah, just wanted to like put a perspective on it. Like I've been in this industry for as long as I remember, but it's so hard. It's the hardest part.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jen.
Hi, I'm Jen. I work for an eyewear manufacturer and distributor. So just curious, how do you vet your manufacturers? And also too, I'm sure there's different pricing tier offerings on the platform.
I'll take the manufacturing.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a couple tiers. We price it kind of like after, I would say, more tech software. So like the entry level is like $20 a month, and then depending on like the level of service, it goes up to $300 a month. And then there's like other services that we can put on top of that are like more what I would say like traditional fashion-y type services. Like if you need a better pattern, we can do the pattern making and get that done. But those are kind of like the basic software packages. And the business, so like if we're talking to a production team, the pitch is kind of like you can replace a lot of your unpaid interns / like people with basically the system that where it's all the reporting is like get rid of those Excel sheets that and just put everything in one place so we can put the business intelligence behind that. So that's kind of like the software side.
Yeah, no more paper, no more faxes, no more sticky notes, no more things. Yeah, it's crazy. On the manufacturing side, so basically all of our manufacturers come referred to us by other designers and brands. And that's super, super important and also differentiates us from some of our competitors who are just like connecting with manufacturers, because we know there's like a level of they get working with smaller brands. They prefer it. We go in and personally vet all of them. They're all in the US. We know that they're good to work with, that the quality of their work is on par, and that they can also use our technology. So they're on our platform, they're responsive, they have to submit quotes in 48 hours, they're updating at each step of the process, so saying like the fabric's in, it's being cut, it's being sewn. It helps overall like their business because they understand where their inefficiencies are and like how they can operate better. There's a little bit of, I'd say, education in like giving them this process because they're not totally used to it. But the benefit for our manufacturers who right now do not pay anything to be on the platform is that they get a funnel of orders coming in year
Where they
round.
know the designer has the cash up front to pay them for the
Yeah, that's a big
Right.
one.
Yeah.
In addition,
and they have like
there's a
kind
level
of
of
a
trust and like the tech pack
Right.
is standardized, they're not following
Yeah.
up, like it's just so much
and
more
we
efficient.
vet every tech pack before it goes to them to review.
Yeah.
So like they kind of get this added benefit of being like, well, we know the person has money, we know we can call Gemma and Amanda to yell at them. We know like the tech pack will at least be like pretty much complete. And we like spend a lot of time on these tech packs.
Oh yeah,
We'll review them. We'll have kind of
we're making sure the
multiple
fabric's
layers,
there,
yep.
that like everything.
we'll check the
matches
sourcing
it.
on the fabric. If it's like low, we'll be like, you need to resource this and have another option. We'll help do that if we need to. But like, we want to make sure like all the boxes are ticked before it goes up for pre-sale.
Yeah, and the benefit to the designers, there's like a bidding process once they get those quotes back from the manufacturer. So because they're coming through our platform, the pricing that they would get on a per garment basis or even just for an order is less than if they were to go independently as a brand to the manufacturer. We have absolutely no like leverage in negotiating those
Buying
prices,
power.
or you're like pushed back in the production timeline. And it's like no, as part of like this 19th Amendment umbrella, you actually have a lot of leverage, and here's the better pricing that we can get, and it's going to be guaranteed to be made in 4 to 6 weeks, and you have total transparency throughout the process.
And is it just ready-to-wear at this time, or do you have other categories?
Mostly ready to wear, cut and sew. We're exploring soft accessories and other accessories, but for us, it's about finding the quality manufacturers first.
Hi, I'm Andrew. I work in the analytics space for wholesale brands. So how receptive have manufacturers been to technology platforms like yours? Obviously, a lot more millennials on the design side than the manufacturing side.
Right.
So how's that process?
So they're receptive to all the business reasons that we talked about this being awesome for them. They're less like a trained, like maybe you and I, to be like, oh, I got an email, I should probably go click that link kind of thing. So what we found is usually the manufacturers that work best with us are either have like a second generation within the family that's coming up that's like the one that's adopting this technology, which sounds like a lot of you have seen, or they have someone younger on staff who maybe does an account kind of management role that they've kind of put in charge to handle everything on the computer, and they just kind of do what they do best, which is usually more of the handwork or overseeing, and they let this other person manage it. So I mean, there's like a trade-off, but if anyone follows like any garment district related discussions, there's like lots of talk about, you know, who's going to be taking up these skill sets and what does training look like. And we've seen like new manufacturers kind of come up that are, I would say, like millennial kind of factory owners.
In New York or
yeah, like in like the New York,
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, and other places. That, you know, people that want to go back to kind of like that maker kind of thing, but like that's kind of a whole other thing because they're approaching it from like not like a traditional, you know, trained side. They're kind of like I can do this too, and let's make it work.
It's a viable business. It's just that I think going forward it has to be a smarter business. It can't just totally rely on like 4 seasons and this is what your orders are going to be. They had to adjust, and like that's what we're providing them is a different way to run and operate that's smarter but also reflects the times.
Right. And so that's one of the things we didn't really explicitly say is like a lot of these orders are happening off the traditional fashion calendar. So like they're getting a constant flow of orders when otherwise they'd have to lay off seamstresses or lay off
fire and then retrain, and like that's part of the reason why you don't have the training and the people. So if we can kind of keep that going, then that makes it a growing industry.
Can I ask the question, I guess? Then? So basically, I really love that you touched upon how like others do versus how like designers that you work do. What do you think why do you think those designers that are a little bit more mature, right, been there for a while, are not really changing their business models? Like,
change is hard.
It is hard, but
I mean, onboarding onto our site is like it takes probably like some people can do it really fast, but getting over that like just model change kind of hump, like even though it like logically makes sense for the designer, like this makes like I'm not investing cash up front. It's still you have to really kind of go through it, and so that's kind of a hurdle. Like
Yeah, I think
shift.
especially for like some of the bigger brands, and we're talking to like a lot of more of the well-known designers now.
Like 1 to 3 million
like,
wholesale
revenue
that aren't doing direct to consumer yet. You're like
they don't even have a website where you can buy
their clothing. It's
crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But it's like it's necessity now, and they're at the point where like they have to do this. I mean, if we're seeing it with these bigger retailers coming to us, then it's just really those medium-sized brands who are starting to switch over and change.
Right, because it comes all the way from consumer and not buying from retailers because they go direct to consumer. So the retailers are suffering and they're dropping the brands that don't really do well, and then the brands are like, okay, maybe we should open the website.
Yeah,
and this is the only thing that they do maybe, and it doesn't work for them. And then they go to platforms like Spring, where I work, where they don't sell it because they're lost in this 2,000 brands that they offer.
Yeah.
Well, they can go to you guys where you specialize in these beautiful things like production and really like getting to the customer.
Yeah.
I think that's really
now's the
future.
time. Honestly, now's the time. It's like everyone's seeing
don't
it.
wait.
Don't wait. Whoever's out there, seriously, don't.
I think it really just takes a few success stories for big brands. If you have couple of brands that are really great, and they will spike off, and then all the others are gonna go.
Yeah,
you're gonna get there. It's a process.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it's really one of the most important parts is like that there is actually a brand behind and a story behind the designer or the brand that comes onto the site. Like, we can only do so much with a product. A lot of it now is really about how you're telling the story. So, we do a lot to really, when we see a brand with a great story and a great product, and we're having conversations on the side with larger partners, and we have a press closet where press and stylists come in like every day and want to pull stuff, and it's like if there's a really great like authentic alignment of things, it is beautiful. But the problem is like you have to have a really great storyteller or draw that story out of someone, and then have like be able to connect the dots and do that across like multiple brands.
The industry.
Yes.
Ambition, you guys. Ambition. That was basically my last question. That was really more about industry related. Wanted to go into the personal a little bit because all of my events are touching about, because we know we're all people and we really want to know what's really going on behind the scenes. And
is this the real talk part?
Because we can get really, really like far away with the business and all those amazing things that we can do. But who are we? Are we staying as ourselves, or we're just kind of following, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you guys, how do you, both entrepreneurs, partners, how do you keep the balance between work and life, and what do you do for that? How do you manage?
Any
tips?
Well, I think if you're going to start a company, having a co-founder is amazing.
Yeah.
Amanda and I are definitely like kind of opposites So it helps to have kind of an opposite because like they can balance you for better and for worse against each other. So like where she might be like especially positive and idealistic, I'm very like whoa. So that's like a nice balance because when I'm having a bad day, I can go to her and she'll like say something
and
positive. And hopefully I say something positive back, or I'll just say something really, really, really depressing, and she'll be like, "It's not that bad." So that's how that works. I would suggest working out is fun.
Yeah, you're better at that than I. Gemma goes to the gym, and I'm like, I haven't figured that one out yet.
And like anything about traveling, like how do you manage that traveling and
I travel a
and
lot.
entrepreneurship for work or for fun? Your Instagram says
We make it both. It's mainly for work, but I think it's, if we are traveling, we try to take a little bit of time and just decompress a bit. I think every day being at this for so long, you have to kind of have that time for yourself and realize that the time that you invest in yourself does make you a better entrepreneur. And I think that's important to realize because there's such a thing as burnout. It happens.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you start a founder.
Are you experiencing that?
No, because like working for a company is stress less, especially now that I know we're getting ready for a holiday, but are we really like saving less here? We're not doing anything. Whatever,
Stress is real.
I don't really care so much.
Especially
Especially if it's not startup like Spring is not even a startup anymore, so just chill, you guys. It's gonna be fine. Talking about female founders, investments, how does that work? Like, how does it when
like
tech?
I mean,
Okay.
so well, first of all, like I think the current statistic is 6% of.
I think it's 4.
I thought it was like 2. They just
Oh,
said.
did it go down?
It was like 2 like
Yeah.
last year.
So this
It
is
was
the
like,
glass half empty conversation.
It's not getting
Uh,
better.
it's not.
So it's not necessarily getting better. There's more conversations about it. I think for us, retail investors, like tech investors that used to invest in what wasn't really a tech company, like a Bonobos or
Fab or
whoever,
Nasty
did that and then realized like, oh, you don't get the same returns. It's not the same business.
Yeah.
It's not as
Higher
scalable as
expectations.
like a straight software company. So then they're like, and then on top of that, you have kind of this sea change happening in the retail space, which I'm sure you're all knowledgeable of just like things looking really bad, but like not necessarily being bad, just like kind of
More
adjusting.
opportunity.
It's exciting.
Yeah,
It's
it's
so
exciting.
exciting.
Yes.
So
Me.
much.
You're in America.
Yeah, I feel like
This is great. We
Um,
have the whole Wild West.
So like in some ways, like the things we started talking about over 3 years ago now are kind of coming like we don't want to say we told you so to some.
we're
of the
telling
people.
you stuff.
Yeah, we're telling you so. So yeah, but in like an apocalyptic kind of way. So that's kind of good. I think the true struggle that we have is just you guys. A lot of you are in the retail business. Not a lot of people understand what goes into making a garment.
Yeah.
And how difficult it is to get a physical product made, but especially fashion. And so what we end up finding is for anyone that doesn't have that experience, we spend a lot of time educating them on the process to then turn around and say, so that's how it used to be done. Doesn't that suck? But let's tell you about how it can be done better.
So a lot of investors have been educated. They know how it was.
Yes.
So that's been good. But I think, we haven't raised like the traditional amounts like a tech company would have. We go into meetings and they're like, you're at Series B or C. I'm like, not quite. But we've done so much with so little, and it, in a way, I think it makes us better entrepreneurs. We run the business very, very lean, and whatever we tell designers to do, like, we're doing ourselves. Like, we're doing, like, our PR, we're doing that outreach every day. Like, we're figuring out better ways to be more efficient with whatever cash that we have, and feeding it back into the business to create something that is truly sustainable. So I think it makes us, I guess, not experts, but almost experts for our designers to be like, no, you really can do this because we're doing it, so like you can do it too.
Thank you so much. It's been so
That was my class.
inspiring. Thank you. It's hard. Now I'm gonna go design. A little line.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again.
Yeah.
So open questions, you guys.
Yeah, we're happy to talk
We
about.
have 10
anything.
minutes for the questions and some networking after
Maybe
that.
not about everything.
Yeah. Sorry. What did you want to say?
Well, I was just gonna say, like, we talk a lot about fashion, but like we both have been through like 8 accelerator states.
Yeah,
so we can talk about like almost literally.
Yeah.
We can give you thought. You know, if you
We will give
want
you
to talk
a
about
tour.
other industries, like we've worked in those too. So
Yeah.
we're happy to talk about whatever.
We're very transparent, just like our manufacturing process.
That's a glass of wine.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what grabbed me in your presentation was domestic production, but such high margins.
Yeah.
I'm trying to like tease out just how those margins work. So is it because you have like a largely full price business, or is it that you have the scalability because you're doing manufacturing for all these brands, or kind of like what are the how you're making that work?
It's our secret.
I don't need a balance sheet, but I'm just curious where you're seeing the margin gains that, you know, someone who's maybe producing in Portugal or
Yeah.
Mexico or
Yeah.
wherever.
So, well, part of it is the better pricing from manufacturers because we've cut down on a lot of like pricing that they add into some of their services to account for the fact that the designer might not pay.
Yeah.
They know they have to fix the tech pack, etc. Part of it is that most of our brands don't do wholesale, so we're kind of they have flexibility to determine what the pre-sale is, and it's like can be a little bit they can play with that versus so they always have the like suggested retail price listed, but they get to play around with the pre-sale price a little bit. And they're selling direct to consumers, so whatever margin they want to build in, they can build in kind of their own accord. We have suggestions that we do, but you know they can, depending on the design and the fabric is kind of the key thing here. They can sell a good for like $200 that is super cheap to make because they make those right decisions. So what we're working on making the platform smarter is to be able to basically make those suggestions earlier on in the product development cycle so that they're not buying fabric for like $75.
Yeah, and like once they launch your product and they sell it and they like
Yeah.
actually go through the manufacturing process, we give them a breakdown of what went into that, and they can relaunch. They can figure out a better way to do it going forward. So it's always kind of like a constant learning process, and for us, this is truly like a testing platform for them to understand how to best operate.
Sorry, I have a couple questions going through my head right now, but the biggest
What's
one
your name?
is, I'm sorry, I'm Megan. I'm a designer, I used to work for Anthropologie, J. Crew, and now like a contemporary label. And I'm just curious because I've been to factories over in China and India, and obviously India specializes more in embroidery, beading, things like that you can't necessarily find in a New York factory. Do any of your designers like carry more towards that aesthetic, or are they just very clean, minimal type?
I mean, there's stuff. So part of our job is like when a designer comes to us with a garment, like, oh, we might not have like the right manufacturer, or there might be someone in our pipeline who we haven't onboarded yet. But we've pretty much identified, I'd say, like the majority of people who can do sort of like specialty elements. It may not all happen in one factory.
Right.
There might be multiple factories that are involved.
Yeah, so we'll like suggest a more like kind of just in time model for stuff like that. So like they can, if they really want to buy something that's like a fully beaded, like I don't know, like breastplate thing, they can have that done where they were doing it in India, import it as a piece, and send that to the manufacturer to be assembled in the U.S. We have looked for like embroidery and hand stuff to other places. So like we were doing a lot of that in Puerto Rico for a while because they have a lot of big tradition in that. We're not doing it at the moment there, but we'll probably do that again there just because you can find these things. You just have to look.
Yeah. Also in the bridal industry, it's like kind of places that you wouldn't know to look or even have access to some of these manufacturers. Like honestly,
But they
just
all want
walking
more
to
work.
some of our manufacturers will be like,
Yeah.
oh, what's happening there? And it might be like beadwork or something super specific, and then we'll go in and vet and really see.
Or if it's just like really crazy, like if they want to do like an entirely beaded dress, we'll be like, sorry.
No, I think it's great what you guys are doing. I think it's exciting, especially like you're saying, being on the design side. It's so frustrating, and then having the experience of going over there. and there's like so much miscommunication.
Yeah.
It's a dreading process. And then for me, like I'm trying to start my own brand, and it's like the back end is so much to try to figure out that you can't even have time to really focus on.
You
the
should
front
go
end.
on 19th Amendment.
It's just it's exciting to hear that someone's trying to work through more of like the less glamorous side of design for emerging designers, and I think it's awesome. So
Yeah. Thank you.
congrats.
Yay. Feeling good.
So we'll see your application.
Yeah.
Or in the jacket.
Yes. Hi, I'm Allison. I'm in the retail buying industry.
Cool.
And I was wondering how, like, for a brand that is a small, just beginning startup brand that is on your site with no wholesale, they're just selling direct to consumer. But you guys, do you have some sort of like package, or do you help them through moving towards the wholesale side once they get to that point? Like, if they really, do super well on your platform.
Right. The answer is yes, with kind of caveats. We have opportunities for them to be introduced to larger retailers, although at this point in the environment, it's very rare that they'd be bought anywhere, and especially flat buy, not a consignment. And we typically don't recommend that they do consignment because they usually have a cash flow issue anyway. We are identifying some smaller American boutiques that have a commitment. They'll make an actual buy. They have a commitment to independent designers. They're in markets that make sense. But again, they want to hit a wholesale price that's between 50 and 150 wholesale. So unless the designer can, the problem is this model works because the consumer is basically investing on their behalf in the production, right? Unless the designer has a couple thousand to make that wholesale buy to just get it made, they can't even start talking wholesale. So it depends on the brand. Is the answer.
And just like with those bigger retailers that we've worked with, they also are just kind of interested in this inventory-less model.
They don't want to hold.
They don't want to hold it. It's scary
wants to
to
hold
them.
Yeah.
And we
wants
get
it.
that, and it's a way for them to offer product that without that risk too. So we're seeing more and more demand from that, and I think the consumer is getting used to it, and it's kind of coming together on that end as well.
Hi, I'm Fabian. I'm a business analyst and a stylist. So I was thinking and listening at the same time, and you were talking about how you have to educate manufacturers. Do you think in the future that 19th Amendment would not so much hold a designer's hand, but just offer some kind of refreshers of education along the way? Because I'm sure that there are designers who are really into just straight up creativity, and then sometimes when they don't see a profit, they it can cause some issues. But do you think you'll start offering just little stuff, little nitpicks and things where they can remember the business portion of their industry?
Me too.
Do consulting.
So probably the problem right now is we consult a lot, but we don't charge for it.
Yeah.
And I think the designers don't realize what exactly they're getting for free with the platform. And so we've had this trouble kind of a lot because we'll bring people in to talk to designers to kind of reinforce the messages we're already telling them who are consultants. And often the brands will be like, that was great, can't believe this, I'm gonna go have a consulting session, and these consulting sessions are $200 something an hour, maybe more. And we're like, are they paying for that? And then wait, they don't have money to do a pop-up, or they don't have they can't pay this month's SaaS fee, what? I don't understand. So the answer to your question is we're trying to figure out pricing and conveying value better, because essentially for $20 to $90 a month, they're getting a full PR team, a full ops team. Well, not a full, but a outsourced ops team, help on the manufacturing side.
Yeah.
Help, marketing, full marketing for the launches, etc. and they're just paying that single price. So we're thinking about different ways we can do it, but it's
I mean, our blog is one of the best resources for them, and it's something that if
they have to read it.
They have to read it, but also
that's you'd be surprised how
there's a lot of stuff on there, really really valuable stuff. But the brand sometimes has to ask for it first, so it's more like how can we give them the right tools, but that are in the right price point, so that they're not spending their limited cash just on figuring out a business plan, which probably isn't even totally the business plan that's going to, carry them
The
through.
other thing that frustrates us, and we've talked about this before, is especially some of the fashion week stuff where brands have been or designers have been trained to be I'm
you
gonna
have to
spend
have a $10,000 runway show on
on
the low end.
for fashion week, and then they'll spend
What's your
it.
ROI on that?
And no one will come and they'll be like, I just spent all this money on the fashion show and nothing happened. We're like,
Should have made it shoppable and a few other things. So it's really helpful when brands come to us and say, these are what our issues are, how can you help? And then, if there is a consultant or someone who specializes in something or something that we can offer or just point them in the right direction, then it's so much more efficient than them coming to us after and being like, I just did this, this, and this. And we're like, we could have told you, we've been doing this for a long time. We know kind of what works, but they have to be the ones that come to us because, it's their business ultimately.
Do you work with anyone who's just solely e-com based?
Designer, brands?
Sorry, brands are
oh yeah, most of our brands are direct to consumer.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll do a lot of pop-ups. We're still in a few boutiques, but that's direct.
We have time for one more question.
Can you share what you did with Microsoft?
Julian.
I'm Julian. I work at jet.com.
Oh, cool. So
Microsoft.
we've done a couple things.
Yeah. So Microsoft is really into the design space and
fashion as entertainment.
Fashion as
Content
entertainment
is a very big thing.
content. So we have a few designers who actually work with Microsoft products designing. So it's kind of a beautiful moment for us to tell the tech side of the story, and from total design, just sketching all the way through to uploading their products on 19th Amendment, and then having it on the runway and the audience having surfaces and purchasing from the runway on 19th Amendment. It's just kind of a natural collaboration for us to tell both sides of the story and how we're changing retail and the design process through technology. So we've done quite a few things with them, from pop-ups to designer corners and designer nights to a actual shoppable runway show, which was absolutely fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very insightful. I wish we could